Welcome, dear listener, to a journey across time, myth, and stone. Today we walk beneath the shadow of ancient Athens. This is the tale of Athena, goddess of wisdom and light. It is also the story of the Parthenon, her sacred and eternal home. Close your eyes and imagine the city more than 2,000 years ago. The air is filled with voices, laughter, and the sound of footsteps on marble. Athens shines as the center of art, philosophy, and democracy. At the heart of this radiant city rises a temple like no other. Its columns touch the sky, its marble gleams under the golden sun. Every stone speaks of devotion, of balance, of beauty, and order. The Parthenon is not just a building, it is a living poem in stone. But behind it stands a greater story, one of gods and choices. A story where wisdom triumphs over force and peace over power. Athena is more than a goddess. She is an ideal, a guide for humanity. Through her, Athens found its spirit, its identity, its everlasting voice. And through the Parthenon, that spirit still speaks to us today. So let us begin, step by step, through myth, history, and timeless wonder. Long ago, before the Parthenon rose, there was a tale whispered among the gods of Olympus. It is the story of a birth unlike any other, the birth of Athena, goddess of wisdom and light. The skies above were calm, but the palace of Zeus trembled with mystery and anticipation. Zeus, king of the gods, had once swallowed the goddess Metis, fearing her child's power. Metis was goddess of clever thought, and within Zeus, her spirit remained alive and stirring. From this union of might and mind, a spark of brilliance grew silently, waiting to emerge. One day, Zeus felt a pain so great that it echoed across the heavens and the earth. It was not pain of battle, but of creation, a force building within him without release. The other gods gathered, watching in awe, unsure of what would unfold before their eyes. With a cry that shook the skies, Zeus called upon the god Hephaestus for aid. Hephaestus raised his mighty hammer, not in anger, but in service to divine will. With one resounding strike upon Zeus's head, a miracle was set into motion. From the opening leapt Athena, radiant, full-grown, and armored in shining brilliance. Her eyes sparkled with wisdom. Her presence glowed with the calm strength of truth. The gods stepped back, amazed, as Athena stood tall, steady, and filled with grace. Unlike other births, hers was not of weakness or infancy, but of power and purpose. She carried a shield upon her arm and the aegis at her breast, symbols of divine strength. Upon her head gleamed a helmet, not heavy with war, but crowned with dignity. In that moment, wisdom itself took form, shaping the destiny of mortals and gods alike. Athena bowed before Zeus, not as a rival, but as a daughter and ally of Olympus. Her voice was calm, her words clear, filled with the balance of thought and reason. The gods rejoiced, for they saw not a threat, but a guardian of order and understanding. Athena's first steps upon Olympus carried the promise of harmony and enlightened rule. She was not born to conquer, but to guide, to lift hearts and sharpen minds. From her earliest breath, she became the embodiment of clarity and just decision. The owl took flight as her companion, a bird of silent watch and piercing vision. From then on, the owl would be the symbol of wisdom, sharp-eyed and steadfast. Athena also carried the gift of the olive tree, though its story was yet to come. This tree would one day change the fate of a city, offering peace and prosperity. But in her birth, the first gift she gave was inspiration, a light upon the human mind. Mortals would look to her in times of doubt, seeking counsel and steady judgment. They would call her guardian of crafts, of weaving, of skill, of the arts of the hand. She was as much a goddess of creation as of knowledge, shaping beauty and order. The birth of Athena was more than a divine event. It was a symbol for all time. It showed that from thought and spirit could come strength, not just from force. It told of a balance between might and mind, courage and compassion. Athena's story begins not with conquest, but with a vision of wisdom leading the way. Her presence upon Olympus brought a new chapter, one of harmony and guidance. She did not thunder like Zeus, nor rage like Ares, nor seduce like Aphrodite. Her strength was calm, her path clear, her gift enduring and eternal. In this way, Athena entered the world, fully formed, shining with divine grace. And in her birth, she carried a promise that would echo through ages and across the seas. It was a promise that mortals would one day build temples, stories, and cities in her name. Among them would rise one city above the rest, a city that bore her spirit forever. But before that city was claimed, before its stones were laid, her myth had to grow. For now, let us pause at her first breath, her first step, her first moment of light. Athena, daughter of wisdom and strength, stood at the dawn of her timeless story. Athena did not rise into Olympus as a silent figure, but as a beacon crowned with meaning and signs. Her presence was more than armor and light. It was a tapestry of symbols that told her eternal story. Each emblem carried a message, a reminder of her power, her wisdom, and her guidance for humanity. The first of these was the owl, small in form, yet vast in the wisdom it embodied. With eyes that pierced the night, the owl became her companion, her emblem of insight. In its watchful gaze lay clarity, the ability to see truth when all else was cloaked in shadow. The people of Athens would one day carve owls into their coins, their walls, and their memory. They believed that through the owl, Athena's wisdom would watch over their lives and choices. To hold an image of the owl was to hold a fragment of her vision, steady and true. Another sacred gift bound to her was the olive tree, rooted deep in the soil of the earth. The olive was no weapon, no spear, but a living promise of peace, food, and prosperity. Its branches gave shade, its fruit gave nourishment, its oil gave light to homes and hearths. Where other gods brought thunder or storm, Athena offered a tree that would endure seasons. She showed that true strength was not only in might, but in patience, growth, and care. The olive tree would one day crown her victory in Athens, yet even before, it marked her grace. In its leaves was peace, in its roots was stability, and in its gift was endless renewal. Athena also bore the aegis, a shield of divine protection adorned with powerful symbols. Upon it shone the head of the Gorgon, not to frighten mortals, but to ward off harm. The aegis was not just a weapon. It was a mantle of justice and divine guardianship. When mortals prayed for safety, they imagined her aegis stretched above them like the sky. Her helmet, too, carried meaning, though it was not forged for endless war. It stood as a crown of dignity, a reminder that wisdom could walk hand in hand with courage. Athena's helmet was lifted often, not to conceal her, but to reveal her clear and thoughtful eyes. For she was never a goddess hidden in shadow, but one who faced the world with calm clarity. Even her spear, often misunderstood, was not a tool of blood, but of direction and focus. In her hand, it symbolized not chaos, but order, not conquest, but the guiding line of justice. Through these symbols, the people came to know her, to call upon her in times of need. Craftsmen prayed to her when shaping wood, weaving cloth, or forging tools of daily life. They saw in her not only a guardian of cities, but a patron of skill, art, and human endeavor. Philosophers spoke her name when searching for reason, balance, and the wisdom of truth. She was as present in the whisper of thought as she was in the stones of her temples. Her image was carved upon marble, etched upon coins, painted upon pottery, and sung in verse. Yet beyond art, her symbols lived in every olive branch, every owl's call, every wise decision. To honor Athena was to honor the pursuit of knowledge and the crafting of beauty. She was not a distant goddess demanding fear, but a near presence inviting reverence. Her character shone in balance, strength without cruelty, wisdom without arrogance. Even the other gods respected the steadiness she brought to the halls of Olympus. When disputes rose, her words were measured, her judgments fair, her voice steady. She became the light that bridged divine will and mortal hope, guiding both with clarity. And so, her symbols endured, not as relics, but as living guides across centuries. The owl still teaches us to see in darkness, to search for knowledge beyond the obvious. The olive tree still offers peace, patience, and the gift of renewal in our daily lives. The vine aegis still reminds us that protection and justice must shield the vulnerable. The helmet and spear still echo the truth that courage and wisdom walk best together. Athena's character was written not in fleeting acts, but in timeless symbols of meaning. They remain with us, whispering softly of her presence, long after temples turned to ruins. For as long as an owl flies, an olive grows, or wisdom is sought, Athena still walks beside us. Long after Athena's birth, a story rose that would shape the very name of a great city. It was the contest between gods, a trial to decide who would guard and guide a new people. The land was fresh with promise, a place where mortals sought order, shelter, and identity. Two mighty deities stepped forward, each eager to become the city's eternal patron. Poseidon, god of the seas, storms, and horses, stood tall with his trident in hand. Athena, goddess of wisdom, crafts, and peace, faced him with calm and steady resolve. The people of the land watched closely, their fate hanging upon the gifts of the gods. Zeus declared that the contest would be decided by the value of the gifts offered. The first to act was Poseidon, whose power was wild, vast, and commanding. He raised his trident and struck the ground with a force that shook the earth. From the rock burst forth a fountain, its waters surging high into the air. The people gasped, for they saw the power of Poseidon flowing before their eyes. Yet when they reached to drink, the water stung with salt, bitter from the sea. It was a gift of strength, but not of nurture, a reminder of Poseidon's restless might. Next came Athena, who stepped forward with a gaze calm as dawn upon the horizon. She knelt upon the earth and pressed her hand into the soil with gentle care. From that touch grew a tree, slender at first, then strong, crowned with silver-green leaves. It was the olive, a gift both humble and eternal, offering more than beauty alone. The people gathered around, marveling at its shade, its fruit, and its promise of peace. The olive gave nourishment for their tables, oil for their lamps, and wood for their homes. Unlike Poseidon's fountain, the tree asked for patience, but in return gave endless renewal. The gods looked upon both gifts and waited for the people to choose their fate. The choice was not made in fear, but in hope, a hope for a life of balance and growth. The people lifted their voices for Athena, honoring her wisdom and her gentle strength. With that decision, the city became Athens, forever tied to the goddess who loved them. Poseidon's pride was wounded, But the contest had been fair, and the choice was clear. Athena stood not as a conqueror, but as a guardian, her symbol rooted in the earth. The olive tree grew as a living witness to the moment when wisdom triumphed over force. Athens was not founded on fear of storms, but on trust in reason and resilience. In time, the tree became sacred, its branches used in rituals, its fruit cherished in trade. Travelers from far lands spoke of Athens, the city that had chosen peace over pride. They told of a people who followed a goddess who guided with fairness, not with fury. The contest became legend, passed down from poet to poet, from parent to child. It taught that the true power of a city lies not in weapons, but in the gifts it nurtures. Through Athena, Athens grew into a beacon of learning, art, and civic life. The olive groves spread across its hills, silent guardians of the goddess's promise. And so the contest was not a tale of rivalry alone, but of destiny unfolding. It revealed the heart of Athena's gift, that wisdom, once planted, grows for generations. Her victory was not loud nor violent, but steady, rooted in patience and enduring care. Athens thrived because its people embraced not the salt of the sea, but the fruit of the land. From then on, the owl and the olive were joined as the twin symbols of her city. They whispered of watchful eyes and enduring peace, side by side under her protection. Even now, when one speaks of Athens, the echo of that contest lingers in the air. It is the sound of water crashing against stone and of leaves rustling in the wind. It is the memory of two gods, one offering power, the other offering wisdom. And it is the reminder that the path chosen by a people can shape the world forever. The contest had ended, and with it, a city found its soul. A people found their guiding star. Athena's olive tree stood firm, its roots drinking the earth, its branches swaying in the wind. The people gathered around, touched by the promise of peace, nourishment, and lasting hope. They lifted their voices, not in fear, but in gratitude, choosing Athena as their eternal protector. From that moment, the city bore her name, Athens, a tribute to the goddess who gifted wisdom. The birth of a city is more than walls and streets. It is a spirit that shapes generations. Athens became a place not only of survival, but of flourishing, guided by balance and thought. The olive tree became sacred, its branches woven into crowns for victors and leaders. To wear an olive crown was not only to be honored, but to be bound to Athena's spirit. Its oil burned in lamps that glowed across homes and temples, bringing light through the night. In each flame, the Athenians saw her presence, calm, steady, and protective. Her temple stood as a gathering point, a place where mortals reached toward the divine. Yet her true temple was the city itself, shaped by her wisdom and guarded by her gaze. The people of Athens believed she walked among them, unseen but never absent. When disputes arose, they remembered her fairness, her measured and steady counsel. When crafts were made, they remembered her skill, her hand guiding theirs in silent strength. When minds sought answers, they turned to her, the goddess of reason and clear thought. Athens was not only a city of walls, but a city of ideas, where dialogue became sacred. This was the gift Athena gave. Not just an olive tree, but the courage to seek wisdom. In the marketplace, voices rose not only to trade, but to debate and exchange ideas. Philosophers would one day walk these paths, their words echoing her balance and clarity. Athens became a beacon where democracy found root, where voices could shape destiny. It was not perfect, but it was alive, shaped by the spirit of Athena's olive branch. Other cities sought power through conquest, but Athens sought strength through thought. Its leaders wore crowns of olive leaves, reminding them of patience and responsibility. The city's soldiers marched not as conquerors, but as guardians of their home and values. Athena was with them, not in the clash of war, but in the quiet strength of resolve. The olive groves spread across hills, a living symbol of the goddess's enduring presence. Children grew under their shade, elders rested beneath their branches, and all found peace. Athens flourished, not because of walls alone, but because of a spirit grounded in wisdom. Temples rose to honor Athena. Yet the greatest monument was the daily life of her people. Her image adorned their coins, her owl carved in silver, her name whispered in prayers. She was more than myth. She was the breath of the city, its guardian and its guide. Through her, Athens carried the strength of balance, the courage of reason, and the gift of peace. The story of Athens was not of storms and fear, but of olive trees and wisdom shared. And as the centuries passed, the people never forgot the choice that defined their name. They remembered the contest, the fountain of Poseidon, and the gentle hand of Athena. They remembered that their city was chosen not by chance, but by vision and trust. Athena's spirit flowed through their courts, their schools, their homes, and their hearts. Athens was more than stone. It was an idea, an ideal, born of the goddess's gift. And in every olive branch that grew, the city's spirit whispered her eternal promise, that wisdom endures, that peace guides, and that harmony builds what storms cannot break. As Athens grew in spirit and strength, its people dreamed of a temple worthy of their goddess. They sought not only a home for worship, but a symbol of their bond with Athena herself. It would stand upon the Acropolis, the high rock that looked over the city like a crown. The hill had seen ages pass, but now it was chosen to bear a monument of eternal beauty. Stone by stone, vision took form, a temple that would shine under the sun and stars. This was the beginning of the Parthenon, the sacred house of the maiden goddess. The people did not see it only as stone, but as devotion carved into the heart of their city. Every block carried prayers, every column whispered of trust in Athena's wisdom. Architects imagined balance and harmony, a reflection of the goddess's gifts to them. They measured with care, ensuring each line spoke of order and strength. Workers shaped marble with patience, their hands guided by reverence, not haste. They believed that through their labor, Athena herself watched and approved. The Parthenon rose not from conquest, but from creativity, a victory of human spirit. Its columns stood like guardians, tall and steady, surrounding the inner sanctuary. Within would rest the image of Athena, crafted to honor her grace and her power. This vision was more than a temple. It was Athens itself, expressed in stone and art. Each carving told stories of gods, heroes, and the triumph of balance over chaos. The friezes wrapped around its walls like scrolls, carrying tales of the city's heart. To see the Parthenon was to see Athens, and to see Athens was to see Athena. Children were told it was built with the goddess's blessing, a home for her eternal presence. When festivals came, the people gathered at its steps, their songs rising to the sky. They carried olive branches, wreaths, and offerings, symbols of her enduring gift. Torches glowed in the night, casting light upon the marble that gleamed like dawn. In those moments, the Parthenon was alive, a bridge between mortals and the divine. Athenians looked to it in times of joy and in times of hardship, seeking courage. It reminded them that wisdom was their strength, that balance was their guide. Travelers from distant lands came to see its grandeur, awed by its beauty and design. They spoke of Athens as a city blessed, where thought and art walked hand in hand. The Parthenon became a beacon, not just of worship, but of human achievement. It told the world that Athens valued harmony, light, and the pursuit of excellence. For the Athenians, it was not simply a building, but a living oath to their goddess. It carried their gratitude, their loyalty, and their faith across generations. As sunlight struck its columns, the city seemed to glow with Athena's protection. As moonlight touched its stones, the city slept beneath her gentle watch. The Parthenon stood as both shield and inspiration, guarding the heart of Athens. It was called sacred not only for its beauty, but for what it meant to its people. It was their promise that they would live in her light, guided by her wisdom. And so the Parthenon became more than a temple, more than marble and stone. It became the soul of Athens, forever joined with the goddess who gave them life. Even today, its ruins whisper that same truth, echoing through time and memory. That when people build not for power, but for devotion, the result can touch eternity. The Parthenon rose proudly upon the Acropolis, yet its grandeur was not its only treasure. Inside, the Athenians prepared a statue so magnificent it would embody their devotion forever. This was the vision of Phidias, the great sculptor, entrusted to shape Athena in living form. He imagined her not only as a warrior, but as a guardian, wise, serene, and eternal. Marble could not contain her, so he turned to gold and ivory, gifts rare and divine. Her skin gleamed in ivory, smooth and pure, while her robes shone with golden light. She stood tall, a figure of grace and strength, towering within the heart of the temple. In her hand, she held Nike, the spirit of victory, small yet radiant, a symbol of triumph. Her other hand rested upon a shield, carved with stories of gods and heroes past. The shield spoke not of conquest alone, but of protection, balance, and the defense of wisdom. At her side coiled a serpent, ancient and mysterious, symbol of earth and renewal. Upon her breast gleamed the aegis, adorned with the head of Medusa, a mark of divine power. Her eyes, though carved, seemed alive, watching over the city with steady devotion. Those who entered the Parthenon felt awe, as if Athena herself had descended among them. The statue was not merely art, but presence, a bridge between mortal and immortal realms. Every detail carried meaning, woven into gold and ivory with reverence and intent. The goddess was not distant, but near. Her spirit breathed into the statue's form. Pilgrims from across Greece came to see her, to stand in the radiance of her image. They brought offerings of olive branches, oil, and woven cloth, gifts of respect and love. During the Panathenaic festival, a new robe was carried in procession to adorn her statue. The people sang hymns, their voices rising in unity, filling the temple with devotion. Torches flickered against the gold, and the goddess seemed to glow with living light. Children gazed upward, their hearts filled with stories of their guardian's care. Elders bowed in silence, remembering the wisdom that shaped their city's destiny. For Athenians, the statue was more than wealth. It was their soul cast into form. Its grandeur reflected their gratitude, their belief that wisdom was the greatest gift. The Parthenon's halls echoed with reverence, as if the stones themselves honored her. Travelers carried tales of the golden Athena to distant lands, spreading her renown. They spoke of a city whose goddess stood among them, radiant and eternal. The statue reminded all who entered that Athens was not founded on force, but on vision. Athena's presence was not in thunder or storm, but in calm, enduring brilliance. Through Phidias's hands, The Athenians saw their protector as they imagined her. Tall, graceful, and unyielding, she became the heart of the Parthenon spirit. Generations would pass, yet her golden light remained, casting hope upon the people. The statue stood as a promise that wisdom endures beyond the trials of time. Athenians felt safe beneath her gaze, knowing their goddess watched with eternal care. Even in silence, she spoke of peace, resilience, and the triumph of reason. Her image shone not only within the temple, but within the minds of her people. For as long as the statue stood, Athens felt whole, united in reverence and pride. And though the years would test the city, the memory of golden Athena never faded. She remained a vision of harmony, the living symbol of what the Parthenon was built to hold. The Parthenon was more than a monument of stone and gold. It was the heart of Athenian life. Its steps echoed with footsteps of pilgrims, travelers, and citizens who came in reverence. Each year the city prepared for the Panathenaic festival, a celebration of their goddess. This was not only a feast, but the greatest tribute Athens could give to Athena. The festival united rich and poor, young and old, in honor of their eternal guardian. Preparations began long before the day, with weaving of the sacred robe called the peplos. Women worked with care, threading bright patterns of stories onto its fabric. The robe told of gods and heroes, of Athena's victories, and of her love for the city. When finished, it was more than cloth. It was history, devotion, and art in living color. On the day of the festival, the city came alive with music, drums, and joyous voices. The streets filled with processions, a sea of citizens carrying olive branches and offerings. Children carried baskets of fruit and flowers, their faces glowing with excitement. Young men led cattle, destined for sacrifice, symbols of gratitude to the gods. At the heart of the procession was the peplos, borne high for all to see. It was carried like a treasure, shimmering under the bright Attic sun. The people sang hymns to Athena, their voices rising in harmony with the music. The air was filled with fragrance, flowers, and incense mingling in sacred devotion. At the Parthenon, the robe was presented, a gift to adorn the statue of their goddess. Priests and priestesses performed rites, guiding the city's prayers to Athena. The temple glowed with torches, the marble reflecting the fire's dancing light. In that moment, Athenians felt the presence of their goddess, watching and blessing them. Beyond ritual, the festival was also a time of games, contests, and celebration. Athletes raced in the stadium, their speed honoring the goddess of wisdom and skill. Musicians played flutes and lyres, filling the air with rhythms that stirred the heart. Poets recited verses, their words painting images of gods, heroes, and glory. Even the victors received crowns of olive leaves, tying their triumph to Athena's gift. The city celebrated not only its goddess, but its own unity, spirit, and strength. For in honoring Athena, they also honored themselves, her chosen people. The Panathenaic festival was not one day, but many, filled with contests and joy. It was Athens at its brightest, a city alive with culture, art, and devotion. Travelers marveled at its scale, saying no other city honored its goddess so fully. The festival was both sacred and civic, weaving together faith and identity. Every citizen played a role, and every heart beat with pride for their city. The olive wreaths, the torches, the peplos, all were symbols of a bond unbroken. Athens thrived because it remembered the gift of wisdom and honored it in living form. Each festival renewed their vow to Athena, to walk in her light and guidance. And as night fell, The song still echoed across the hills, carried by the wind. The Parthenon stood glowing in moonlight, its columns touched with silver calm. The goddess within wore her new robe, a symbol of care that bound her to her people. The Panathenaic festival was a more than celebration. It was memory turned into ritual. It reminded Athenians of their origins, their choice, and their guardian's eternal care. For as long as the festival lived, so too did the spirit of Athens and Athena as one. The Parthenon was not silent stone. It was alive with stories told in sculpture and relief. Every column and pediment carried meaning, a message carved for all who entered its gaze. The east pediment shone with the tale of Athena's birth, a moment that shaped heaven and earth. Zeus sat at the center, mighty and calm, while gods gathered around in awe and wonder. From his head, Athena emerged in brilliance, armored yet radiant, a symbol of wisdom's strength. The sculptors captured motion in marble, figures frozen but full of breath and life. Every fold of cloth, every line of muscle spoke of divine presence and power. Visitors looked up and saw not stone, but a story unfolding in eternal silence. On the west pediment, another tale glowed. The contest between Athena and Poseidon. Here the city's destiny was carved, their choice immortalized in marble perfection. Poseidon's trident struck the earth, water rushing forth in proud defiance. Athena planted her olive tree, branches spreading as hope and promise for mankind. The figures around leaned with awe, the moment captured in balanced tension. Athenians saw their myth, their faith, their decision displayed above their sacred home. It reminded them daily of the wisdom they had chosen over the tempest of might. Around the temple ran the frieze, a ribbon of stone telling yet another tale. Here was the Panathenaic procession, carved in endless grace and rhythm. Cavalry galloped with flowing cloaks, horses rearing in proud control and movement. Young men walked in steady ranks, their faces calm, their posture noble. Maidens carried vessels and offerings, each step a gesture of devotion and duty. Musicians with flutes and lyres filled the scene with imagined sound and harmony. At the center, the sacred peplos was presented, the heart of Athens' festival. It was not a myth, but reality carved into eternal memory. The citizens could see themselves reflected in stone, part of something greater. They were no longer just Athenians of a moment, but Athenians of eternity. Above all, the statue of Athena inside held the gaze of all who entered. Phidias, the master, gave her form in ivory and gold, towering and radiant. She held a spear, a shield, and at her hand rested the figure of Nike. Her armor gleamed, her eyes calm yet unyielding, a goddess made visible to mortals. To gaze upon her was to feel small, yet lifted by her presence and grace. The statue was not just art, but a reminder of divine favor and watchfulness. Every visitor left knowing they had stood in the sight of wisdom itself. The Parthenon sculptures were lessons written in marble instead of ink. They taught through image what words alone could not hold. Athenians did not need books to remember. They had stone that spoke eternally. Foreigners who came marveled, saying no city had ever carved such living myths. It was not only skill of hand, but clarity of vision that shaped this art. Each figure was both human and divine, both mortal and eternal. In their quiet strength, the sculptures whispered of balance and harmony. The Parthenon was not decoration, but declaration, an anthem carved in stone. It declared Athens as a city of wisdom, order, and divine protection. It showed that beauty was not separate from truth, but its shining reflection. And as the sun rose each morning, light played across the marble figures. Shadows shifted, details emerged, as though the stories breathed with each new day. The temple was alive, not in body, but in spirit that never faded. Athens had built more than a house for a goddess. They had built a mirror of themselves, etched in stone to endure beyond time. The sculptures told the world, here is Athena, here is Athens, forever joined. The Parthenon was not only a temple for Athenians, it was a beacon for the world. Travelers from distant lands climbed the Acropolis to see the marvel with their own eyes. They came from Asia, from Egypt, from the far edges of the Mediterranean. Each stood in awe, whispering that no structure on earth matched its perfection. For Athens, this was not pride alone. It was diplomacy carved in shining marble. The temple declared to the world that Athens was leader, guardian, and cultural heart. It stood not by accident, but by vision, built during the height of Pericles' dream. Pericles saw Athens as more than a city. He saw it as a light for mankind. The Parthenon became proof of that vision, uniting politics, faith, and art into one. The Delian League had given Athens wealth, and the Parthenon displayed its use in grandeur. Some criticized, saying the city had spent what belonged to allies and friends. But Athenians saw it differently. They believed their goddess deserved nothing less than glory. Gold and marble, ivory and bronze, all gathered to honor wisdom and light. And so the temple rose, each block lifted with care, each detail carved with purpose. The Parthenon became a stage where Athens presented itself to gods and to men. Inside, foreign envoys entered and saw more than stone. They saw the soul of Athens. They returned to their homelands, speaking of a city touched by the divine. Athens grew in reputation, its power enhanced by beauty rather than fear. For beauty carried persuasion where swords could not reach. The Parthenon thus became not only sacred, but also political, a silent ambassador in stone. It told allies of Athens' greatness, and it warned rivals of Athens' resolve. But above all, it reminded Athenians themselves of who they were meant to be. Each time they climbed the steps, they saw their own destiny reflected in marble. No citizen could forget that Athens was chosen by Athena herself. The temple also served as treasury, holding wealth and offerings for the city and goddess. Gold flowed through its halls, a reminder of both prosperity and responsibility. Athenians saw the riches not as mere coin, but as trust guarded by their goddess. Thus the Parthenon was both bank and altar, protector of wealth and faith alike. Its dual role gave it power beyond mere worship, binding economy to spirituality. It was a place where sacred and civic life walked hand in hand. Children who entered would gaze at the statue and know their city was favored. Young men who competed in games saw her blessing in every victory. Elders who prayed in silence found wisdom in her watchful eyes. Generals who planned wars remembered she guided strategy with calm reason. And poets who sang verses felt her presence in every word and rhythm. The Parthenon became the heart of all Athens, not only in faith, but in spirit. It was where the city's story was told, and where its future was imagined. Athens without the Parthenon would not be the same Athens. For the temple held more than stones. It held identity itself. Foreigners could admire, but only Athenians could feel the full depth of belonging. Every celebration, every festival, every offering bound them closer to their goddess. When torches burned at night, the temple glowed as a crown upon the city. Sailors at sea saw it shining and knew they approached the land of wisdom. The Parthenon was thus both lighthouse and temple, guiding souls and ships alike. Its message was clear. Here stands Athens, chosen by Athena, guardian of light. And for centuries, that message carried across seas, across time, unbroken and eternal. Time moves as the river moves, carrying with it triumphs, trials, and endless change. The Parthenon, though built to endure, could not escape the flow of history. For centuries it stood proud, watching over a city that itself rose and fell. The age of Pericles passed, and wars scarred the lands of Greece. Athens, once the shining leader, struggled against rivals and the weight of ambition. Yet still the Parthenon remained, its columns firm, its marble glowing in the sun. Even as politics shifted, Athenians climbed the sacred hill to honor their goddess. Through victories and defeats, the temple was constant, a reminder of their origins. But time did not only test the city, it tested the temple itself. Earthquakes rattled its stones, storms swept across its heights, yet it endured. Each mark, each crack, told a story of survival against nature's strength. Later ages came, bringing new rulers and new beliefs to the sacred hill. The Parthenon changed, yet remained itself, adapting to the will of time. In one age, it was still Athena's house, filled with prayers and offerings. In another, it became a church, rededicated to the Virgin Mary. The goddess of wisdom gave way to the mother of Christ, yet the Spirit lingered. Worshippers entered under the same columns, now singing hymns of a new faith. The marble heard chants in Greek, in Latin, in voices both old and new. The Parthenon was no longer only Athens' treasure, but a sanctuary of wider belief. Later still, it became a mosque under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. A minaret rose beside its columns, and prayers to Allah filled the air. The temple's stones listened, as they always had, to the devotion of humankind. Though gods changed, though names changed, the sacredness remained untouched. The Parthenon was more than a temple. It was a vessel of human faith. It adapted not by choice, but by endurance, bearing the weight of every era. Travelers still came, marveling at its beauty, though its meaning had shifted. Some saw a church, some a mosque, some still whispered of Athena within. All agreed it was more than stone, more than any single faith could claim. It was a place where the divine, however named, touched human hearts. Through centuries, it became not only Athens' symbol, but humanity's shared inheritance. For even as rulers changed, the temple remained a monument of wonder. Its columns stood against the sky, silent witnesses of countless generations. And yet, within its silence, it carried the voices of all who prayed there. The Parthenon became like a book, each age writing a new chapter upon it. It spoke of Greece, of Rome, of Byzantium, of the Ottomans, of all who came. The goddess was no longer visible, her golden statue lost to time. But her spirit, some said, still walked the marble halls at night, whispering wisdom, guiding those who sought truth under the starlit sky. The Parthenon taught that no age, no belief could erase its essence. It belonged to time itself, carrying within it all the voices of faith. And so it endured, a temple, a church, a mosque, a memory of gods. Its story was not one of destruction, but of transformation and survival. For the Parthenon had always been more than walls. It was an eternal witness. And as centuries passed, its presence reminded all of the resilience of spirit. Athens changed, the world changed, yet the Parthenon remained, timeless above its hill. A monument not only of a goddess, but of humanity itself. The Parthenon still stands, though time has weathered its marble and softened its glow. Its columns are broken, its pediments scarred, yet its presence is unshaken. Visitors climb the Acropolis today as pilgrims once did in ancient times. They stand in silence, gazing at the ruins, and feel history breathe around them. Though the goddess's statue is gone, her spirit lingers in the quiet air. Athena's wisdom whispers in the breeze that passes between the columns. The olive tree still grows nearby, a living reminder of her gift to Athens. Its branches bend with the wind, but its roots hold steady in the earth. The Parthenon has become more than Athens, more than Greece, more than its age. It belongs to the world, a treasure of humanity and a voice across centuries. Scholars study its art, architects learn from its design, poets find inspiration in its beauty. Each visitor adds another story, another memory, another moment to its eternal song. The temple speaks of endurance, of change, and of the power of the human spirit. It teaches that beauty can survive even in fragments, even in silence. Though walls may crumble, meaning endures, and wisdom carries across time. Athena's lesson was never about conquest, but about guidance and balance. She showed that true strength lies in wisdom, in foresight, in calm resolve. Athens chose her, and in doing so chose a path that shaped history itself. That choice still echoes, carved into the stones that rise above the city. The Parthenon is not simply ruins, it is memory cast into eternal form. It reminds us that civilizations may fall, but their voices can still reach us. In its broken columns, we see both the fragility and the endurance of mankind. In its weathered marble, we hear the songs of festivals, the prayers of believers. In its silence, we hear the whispers of a goddess who still watches. The Parthenon is no longer only Athens' pride, it is humanity's inheritance. It belongs to every eye that looks upon it and every heart that feels its story. We carry its meaning forward, just as Athenians once carried offerings to their goddess. The temple teaches us to honor wisdom, to seek beauty, to cherish harmony. It is a reminder that even in ruins, greatness does not fade. Each stone is a word, each column a sentence, each ruin a chapter of history. Together they tell a story that no fire, no war, no time can erase. A story of faith, of art, of humanity reaching toward the divine. The Parthenon endures, not as a relic, but as a guidepost for the future. It reminds us that our creations reflect who we are and what we value. Athena's gift to Athens was not only the olive tree, but the spirit of wisdom. And that gift still lives, passed from age to age, through memory and stone. As the sun sets over the Acropolis, shadows stretch across the marble ruins. The city glows with modern life, yet the ancient temple still crowns its hill. In the quiet, one can almost hear footsteps of priests, songs of festivals, voices of prayer. They linger not in sound, but in spirit, woven into the stones themselves. The Parthenon is a monument of light, of resilience, of the bond between mortals and gods. It is a story that began with Athena and continues with us today. For as long as it stands, broken yet proud, it will whisper its lesson. That wisdom endures, that beauty inspires, and that the spirit of humanity is eternal.